प्रभु तव मूर्ति विनोदकारी पलपन विसरे नहीं जो विसारी जुगल चरण सोल चिन्ह जेह नजर समीपे रहो अमारी एह नजर समीपे रहो हमारी एह। ठाकुर जी महाराज नी जय, घनश्याम महाराज नी जय, स्वामीनारायण भगवान नी जय, सद्गुरुदेव नी जय। सद्गुरु Swami Shri Muktanand Swami Sevit, our dear Thakurji Maharaj, Sadguru Shri Muktanand Swami's Divine Guru Parampara, the path maker to our liberation, our dear Puja Guruji, Puja Santo and all we Bhaktos, Jai Swaminarayan. Usually in Kathas, we hear more about the description of Akshardham, how great it is, what the characteristics of Akshardham are, what kind of experiences do those muktos get in Akshardham. Nonetheless, how to get to Akshardham, what to do to get to Akshardham, all these different variations and all these different kinds of facts from the Vachanamrut and other scriptures we listen and absorb in our life. But there's a saying, every coin has two faces. And Akshardham is heads, but tails is the other side, which is in English terminology hell, and in Gujarati context Yampuri. Yampuri is hell, and there isn't much description about that we hear or listen to. There is description of what hell is like in scriptures, but we do not listen to that very much. But in reality, first we have to learn about the pain of hell in order to understand the glory of Akshardham. If we only listen to the glory of Akshardham, it is not enough to have this Jeev completely become engrossed in bhagwan, because this Jeev has been wandering in Maya for countless ages. So the issue is, only if it's shown some kind of fear, only if it's shown some kind of harsh punishment, that it would automatically turn to the good righteousness side of Akshardham, Satsang, following the rules, regulations, niyams, agnas, so on and so forth, so that automatically one would be attracted towards the upright path, which is Akshardham. So in order to understand the Mahima of Akshardham, one first needs to, I guess we can say, understand the Mahima of Yampuri or hell. There is no glory in hell, but I said this in such a way so you can understand that if one observes and understands how Yampuri is, how hell is, according to the scriptures, according to non-Santo scriptures that have been verified by Bhagwan Swaminarayan himself, then only will we be able to attain the Mahima of Akshardham, which is stated in the Vachanamrut by Shree Maharaj himself. So without further ado, today's presentation is on a scripture that Vairagya Murti Sadguru Shri Niskudan Swami wrote called the Yamdand. And Yamdand is a scripture that Bhagwan Swaminarayan, by his wish, by his agna, Sadguru Swami Shri Nishkuran Swami, he himself wrote, and due to that very factor, many jivatmas attain some kind of insight that they do not want to get involved in doing anything unrighteous, because if they do, then they will be pained by the punishments of Yampuri, hell. So we want to learn a little bit about this scripture called Yamdand. Now I just want to tell you first and foremost that there are graphic pictures that Sadguru Swami himself drew in the Yamdand that I'm going to display to you here. But some pictures are so graphic that I decided that instead of showing, I'll write it out and you can imagine from there. So first we would like to learn a little bit of background about this whole scripture, how it was formed. And before we even do that, we would like to learn about choices in our life, right and wrong, karma, and then move on to the scripture itself. So let's go on and see. The title, the choice is yours. In life, you have two ways you can choose for every action, right way versus wrong way. It is all up to you to make the decision. Well, here's the thing. This you've probably heard of, and this is pretty much very basic. But if we get to an advanced level, right versus wrong has more to do with spirituality and understanding than anything. What is right and what is wrong? Outside in the world, we go about with many rules and regulations, a stop sign, traffic lights, even in airplanes, safety belts, oxygen masks, so on and so forth. We follow the rules and regulations of our society in a normal way, day to day, without any kind of question at all, because that has become a habit. But why doesn't it become a habit in the spiritual world? The reason for that is because, again, as I previously stated, this jiva has been wandering in Maya for a very long time, and due to that, it has not been used to the spiritual path. It is not used to doing good deeds. It is not used to following dharam, niyam, agna, and due to that very reason, there's an opposite of a right way, which is a wrong way. If the jiva was absorbed and was following all this, then there would not be an option of a wrong way. The jiva would always do right. But sometimes the jiva has to be shown, the jiva meaning the soul has to be shown some kind of misery, pain, in order for it to choose the right way over the wrong way. So we would like to go further and go a little deeper inside and learn about the karma. Karma, there's two, obviously, bad and good. But breaking the laws of the Shikshapatri, no bhakti or punya, it's Yampuri 100%. Now you're probably wondering, those who are not Swaminarayan followers, do they go to Yampuri? Do they go to hell? Well, if they have not done the proper things, yes. And 99% of the world is probably in that category. Drinking alcohol, eating meat, and all these punishments are stated in this Yamdand book that I'm going to read. Some you'll even be shown, but all these kinds of bad habits of the modern world are all guaranteed to take that soul to Yampuri without a question. Now those jivas who do not know about the Shikshapatri, even if they did know about it, if they did not have the Sangh or the company of the Ekantik Satpurush or Santo, they would ignore the rules. So again, as Satsangis of Loyadham Parivar, as Satsangis of Bhagwan Swaminarayan, be very, very fortunate of what we have received. Our prapti, our attainment is not ordinary. We have attained God. We have attained His Ekantik Satpurush. We have attained scriptures like the Vachanamrut and the Shikshapatri. We have attained Santo and Bhakto who follow and who absorb Bhagwan Swaminarayan's Murti in their day-to-day life. If we start to appreciate what we have received, automatically one would start to sway from those bad karmas and start to perform good karmas. Nonetheless, on the other side, good karmas, you reincarnate as human or other species or go to other heavens. So by doing good karma, it doesn't mean it's over. You see, people in the world, they perform a lot of charity work. They perform a lot of work to help the poor out. They help many, many people out in many, many ways. They do a lot of donations. Nonetheless, they're a good element to human society in some way. But that only helps them reach heavens above, like Swarg, and so on and so forth. But it does not help the Jeev attain Akshardham. That is a different category, that is a different level, and that can only be done through the grace of Bhagwan Swaminarayan and his Ekantik Satpurush. But to achieve Akshardham, the last point, one needs Dharma, Bhakti, Gnan and Vairagya in one's life, followed by Bhagwan Swaminarayan's Upasana and the company of his Ekantik Satpurush. Only then can the Jeev attain the highest of the highest abode and attain the prapti of Bhagwan Swaminarayan forever, and there will be no other misery, there will be no other pain. We've learned the bad and good karma, and we've learned how Akshardham is attained. But in order to understand the mahima and glory of that Akshardham, we first have to understand the pains and miseries of Yampuri, which is completely narrated in the Yamdand by Sadguru Swami Shri Nishkuran Swami. So, let's set the scene. Bhagwan Swaminarayan told Sadguru Shri Nishkuran Swami to write an account of the tortures in hell so that man would be afraid of committing sins. So Swami himself, by the Agna of Bhagwan Swaminarayan, wrote 1,100 verses on life, death and salvation. Swami wrote about life, meaning the baby is young, it's born, becomes a little older, becomes a teenager, becomes a young adult, an adult, an older elder person, and then disappears from this earth. That cycle, after that death cycle starts, then obviously at the end, if one has done something proper, then salvation is attained, or else again the cycle of life and death continues. Swami wrote 1,100 verses. The first half deals with the sorrows of worldly life, separated from God, and the second half extols the joys of salvation. So Swami separated it in two parts. And might I add, Sadguru Swami Shri Nishkuran Swami was a sculptor and a carpenter by occupation previously to his saintly life. Saying so, writing books is completely a different field and a ball game, a completely different, you can say, element to his life. It's pretty much like a kindergarten student learning calculus. It's just very difficult to do. But remember, these are not ordinary souls. These are souls of Akshardham Anadi Muktos that Bhagwan Swaminarayan brought on from his Akshardham to this earth with him 230 years ago. So Nishkaran Swami was a carpenter and sculptor if we look at it in a mundane way, but in reality, in a divine way, he had everything in each and every element in his life, each and every sadgun in his life, each and every skill in his life. But whatever Bhagwan wished, he portrayed on this earth. So, getting back to my point, Swami himself, when Bhagwan Swaminarayan told him, Swami, you have to write this scripture, he himself first said, Swami, Maharaj, I don't know how to write anything. I can't even write at all. I'm illiterate, I cannot write. Maharaj himself said, don't worry, scribble, and automatically words will follow. And that's how these scriptures were written. Through Nishkuran Swami, Bhagwan Swaminarayan wrote all these books, and now we have these books to read for our life. So first half, Swami split with worldly life, sorrows of worldly life, and then the second half, Swami narrated the joys of salvation. It is a work of great historical value because it is the first work written in the Swaminarayan movement. This is also something to note. Nishkuran Swami wrote the Yamdand by the wish of Bhagwan Swaminarayan, which is the very first scripture in the Swaminarayan Sampradaya. It's a feat. It's a very great feat. And Nishkuran Swami himself deserves the credit because he followed Maharaj's Agna, had faith in Maharaj's words, and this whole scripture was created. Nonetheless, moving on, Nishkuran Swami begins with the scene in hell. Now here we go. This is the elements that I want to show you all regarding what Bhagwan Swaminarayan wants us to learn in his about this hell and how we should behave in our life. The god of death, called Yamraja, is seated on his throne. This is setting the scene in the court. So imagine, just like how there's a court here, there's also a court in hell. And the judge is Yamraja. He's the king of hell. He's the one who is in charge of that whole realm. By his sides are two attendants who have a full account of the sinful deeds of the sinner. So there's two accountants. When that person is called up, then those accountants take out the pages according to that soul's identification or number, and they mark and see what good deeds this soul has done and what bad deeds this soul has done. Balancing, obviously that soul is in hell, so obviously it's always going to be bad. A count of whatever category level, here also it's the same, that in police court there's various different crimes, and the level of category of crime, that's the level of punishment you get. In the same way, whatever level of bad karma you've done, that's the level of punishment you received from the Yamduts. Yamduts are pretty much very, very bad people that punish, and they hurt these souls. So, saying so, Saying so, moving on, sorry for the interruption. By his sides are two attendants, and they make a full account of sinful deeds. It's kind of like an accountant. And the gruesome servants of the god of death haul the sinner before the court, where he is deemed to pay the price of his crimes on earth. The process is straightforward. The attendants read the list of the sins as the judge orders appropriate punishments to the sinner. Finally, the judge hands the sinner over to the servants, who drag him away from the courtroom towards the pits of suffering. Very, very straightforward. And as you can see, this is the first pictorial, and Maharaj himself, Nishkuran Swami, you see him writing. He's the one who has the open chest, and he's a little closer to Maharaj, and he's writing. And now this is a scripture that Bhagwan is giving him Asirvad, and he is writing this whole scripture by the wish of Bhagwan Swaminarayan. Now, here we go. Let's go to the scene. Now, this is a set scenario of a human's life. The world is like a tree. Let's go into the whole picture. Take a look at the whole picture. Imagine the world as a tree, and the jiv, or the soul, is hunting after 5 types of sensual pleasures, which are like drops of honey on the tree. As you can see, there's a beehive there, and these 5 types are obviously, looking, listening, tasting, smelling, and feeling all the 5 panch vishays in the world. Now, the jiv feels that it is very tasty. That's why, just like how honey tastes sweet, in the same way, the soul is taking drop by drop. And look at how Swami himself drew this whole scenario in such a metaphorical way and described us how this whole process works. Moving on. Days and nights are like mice burrowing holes through the trees. Think about it. Days and nights are like mice burrowing holes through the trees. Down below, which is located a hell-like death well. As you can see right there, that elephant, underneath that elephant's foot is a hell-like death well. Those who are followers of Bhagwan Swaminarayan, abiding 5 vows given by him, have the privilege of being taken to his divine abode himself. Taken to his abode by himself. Meaning, you see the elephant, you see the tiger, you see the snakes coming out of the pit. Those are all coming after the jiv. The jiv is trying to enjoy pleasures of the world, and these animals in the form of Maya are trying to come and take the jiv, trying to make it fall from the tree directly into the well. So he describes that there's dangers everywhere. So worship God so you can be free from this fake happiness of a world. And now we move on. Now, these graphics are a little gruesome. You've probably never even seen these kinds of monsters before. Not even in maybe movies or anywhere, because this is something that was only in hell. There is nowhere else. If you take a look at the monster's face, body, it is nothing like this of the world. Completely gruesome, very, very frightening. And these are just images. You haven't seen them in reality. Think about what they look like in reality. These are not fictitious beings. These are real beings. Nishkuran Swami was given divine sight by Bhagwan himself. And through that divine sight, he saw all this, and then he wrote and drew this whole Yamdand Granth. When Yamduts thrash a Jew, disinclined body to God, he is horrified seeing the frightful appearance of the Yamduts and loudly cries out. Yamdut separate him from his body and bring him to Yampuri, which is hell. Because of doing all that bad karma. Look at on one side he has a spear, this Yamdut. On the other side he has a rope. One side the Yamdut is pulling the neck, and on the other side is pushing the spear. Think about the pain. Yet they are ruthless monsters which are sent by Yamraja himself to take this soul to Yampuri. Moving on. Now here's the whole court scene, and you see on the throne is Yamraja, and you see those accountants are those are the three on the side, and then you see the Yamdut right there has the soul by the noose. And I want to tell you that the soul does not have a form, but in order to experience the pain, it is given such kind of a form, and there the body is not able to die, and at the same time experiences all pain. That's how bad it is. So that's why you see a body here. I'm saying Jeev and you're seeing a body, so my words do not make sense, but I just described to you in reality how it is. After the Jeev leaves his body, it gets a different kind of body, and Yamdut produce him before Yamraja, who listens to the whole accountant's words of good and bad deeds of the Jeev. Then Dharmaraja or Yamraja sentences him the proper punishments and consigns him to Yamdut. So now the punishments start. Now suppose he's done very, very bad sins, then this is what happens. He starts to move on, and we're going to read a couple of descriptions here after I think there's one more image. Yeah, so here we go. You see these Yamduts, I've never seen such kind of figures. You see their nails, their paws, their teeth. They even have mustaches. That's weird. Yeah, they're very furry. They have hair, different hairstyles. But they're very strong and ferocious. And they're taking the sinner with a noose and bringing it to where punishment is applied. And this is how they do it. There is one taken by the rope. There is one that is poking from the back with a spear and a sword. And there's crows pecking at the head of each and every one of these sinners, in order for him to understand in some way, somehow, that you made the wrong choice. You should have done the right, even when you were given the chances to do so. So now these are some graphic scenes. Punishment is due. As you can see on the first image, top left, what they have done for why they're punished like this, I'll tell you in the next slide. But just want to give you some scenes here. They're tied to rocks, a rock, and the Yamduts are stabbing them. Crows are pecking. Snakes are biting. The top right one, as you can see, is the Yamduts are again, I guess, eating limbs. Very graphic. Middle left, it's like a pit of fire, and the Yamduts have thrown these sinners into the pit, and they're trying to get out, and the Yamduts keep stabbing them back in. The next one on the right middle is you can see that two Yamduts are one is pulling, one is piercing from the back. Yamdut's paw or leg is on top of the head of a sinner. The bottom left is, you can see there's when you cut trees, big trees, there's a type of saw that they use, which is kind of like this, and they cut the tree with two people going back and forth. Well, they're using this saw to split open a head right in the middle, straight, and then there's Yamdut on the right eating the remainings. And then finally, the right bottom. Can't follow too much what it is, but it's pretty graphic, and it's just Yamdut's eating these sinners. So this is how graphic, and these are just some of the images I showed you. But now I would like to describe to you what Nishkuran Swami has wrote himself. And some of these sins, if you do this is the punishment you get, kind of like that deal. So let's go into that. Punishments for various sins, okay? Yeah. And such kind of punishments you've probably never heard of in any scriptures ever. It's just not existent except in the Swaminarayan Sampradaya, which is in reality the truth. Even that fisherman, when Ghanshyam Maharaj was very young, was fishing and killing fish, filling him in a basket. Maharaj himself showed the fisherman hell, and just for a little bit of time, just for a little glimpse of hell, that fisherman was so frightened that he could not move on with his daily activity and stopped sinning completely due to even just seeing a scene of Yampuri. That's what Ghanshyam Maharaj did at his young age because of such kind of a sinner. So here's an account of some of the tortures in hell which Nishkuran Swami describes in Yamdand. Selfish people. Now you have to think, what am I? Out of all these categories, if we, and these are not all of them, there are more, but I've just picked specifically some of them. Out of all these categories, if any of these apply to you, then you should be very afraid and remove any of these swabhavs, natures, so that one does not have to experience the pain, the misery of Yampuri. If you're selfish people are stabbed and their limbs are chopped off with a sword. Unjust rulers and their ministers are crushed to death in hell. One who intentionally kills insects meaning ants, spiders, even small as mosquitoes, and other such living things, is avenged by the very same creature in hell. So suppose you kill a mosquito, then a mosquito in hell takes a very big form and attacks you. Suppose you kill an ant takes a very big form, bigger than you, twice, even 3 times, and attacks you and annoys you. People who commit adultery are thrown in a pool consisting of blood, saliva, pus, urine, and feces. There they are made to drink the rotten mixture and beaten to death. Ouch. That's bad. See, even these descriptions are so graphic that imagine looking at the pictures. And that was the whole point. Such kind of graphic, the soul can only be, if you just write it in words, it just doesn't get the job done. So Maharaj himself was Maharaj, and he told Swami to even draw pictorials. And such kind of pictorials are drawn, and such kind of pains are described and mentioned in the Yamdand. Imposters who exploit innocent people in the name of God are strung together and made to sit on a bed of thorns for 1,000 years. Good luck. Child murderers are chained against a rock and smashed to death. People who rob and mug people suffer excruciating pain where their skin is peeled off with red-hot iron pincers. These are just descriptions. I mean, I'm just reading how it is here. So just think about it. Arrogant people are thrown upside down in a pot of boiling oil where they are left to simmer. People who drink alcohol and other such intoxicants are made to drink hot tar. Like tar. like road tar. Yeah. People who enjoy killing animals for sport are strangled to death. Meat eaters are roasted and eaten up by the demons in hell. It's kind of like their breakfast, lunch, and dinner. Yeah. One who bears false witness against others is made to sleep on a bed of spikes where wild beasts tear him to pieces. So these are just descriptions that Swami himself described in a very graphic manner. And by just listening to these, even in the language of English, we can imagine that this is not a place to go to, because even if you read all the scriptures of the world, you'll never find such kind of descriptions ever, anywhere else. That's how bad it is. And might I add, funny, there are some devotees, and some devotees who even became saints in the future, who, by listening to these scriptures, this Yamdand, became saints because they were like, I do not want to experience the pain of this. And some have also, you can say, have their pant has been spoiled. Pants have been spoiled due to listening to these kinds of kathas in mandirs conducted by santos in the language of Gujarati. That's how graphic Swami Shri has made this book, due to the Agna of Maharaj himself, might I add. So that's why we're very, very fortunate to receive Maharaj Guruji himself, and we have this prapti, and Puji Guruji makes it very, very easy by saying that the life of a devotee is very easy. Just follow the 5 vratmans, worship bhagwan, his upasana, have a clear upasana, and follow the Agna of Maharaj. That's all we have to do. Everything else will automatically come, and everything else will automatically be done. But as satsangis, definitely living in the world, experiencing the world on a day-to-day basis, being kids and young adults and adults in the world, we definitely need to make the right choices in life. So be careful, be very careful. Do not think of this scripture as a joke, because it is not. It is real, it is very real, and may we understand it now or at the end of our life. If we make the bad choices, it's all up to us. So we're very fortunate to receive this Maharaj. We're very fortunate to receive this Guru Parampara. We're very fortunate to receive this Sadguru and these Santos and Bhaktos. So keep following in their Agna, keep saying, keep doing what they say, and automatically we will attain Maharaj's abode and Maharaj's Rajipo. But this whole presentation was based off of, if we want to understand the glory of Akshardham, we first have to understand the pains and miseries of Yampuri. Now, since we have a small surface level insight on how bad Yampuri and hell is by this scripture of Nishkuran Swami Yamdand, then we can appreciate when we read or we listen to the description of Akshardham, and automatically our mind will be pulled there, that I want to go to Akshardham, I want to experience Akshardham. And automatically we would feel more compelled to do good deeds over bad deeds. So all kids and youths of Loyadham Parivar especially, make the right choices, follow the right path, do as the Akantik Satpurush, our Puja Guruji says, do as what Santos say, and automatically our life will be filled with joy, and nonetheless we will attain Maharaj's bliss of Akshardham. Saying this, my humble Jai Swaminarayan.